Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about learning to run, draw, steal. So I've run a lot of draw, steal so far, and I kind of have an ulterior motive with this video is that to get to more directors running some more draw, steal. Share what we can, and the chat can chime in here. David's joining us. Hi, David.
Hi, Tom.
We're live already, David. So
Oh, okay.
share in the chat, what tricks and tips you have for starting games of draw, steal, and what you do to get ready for running a game. And let's see if we get some more people running the game. There's a lot of inertia, of course, with RPGs, right? Everyone's in a campaign, and so they can't just drop whatever campaign they're in and start running another one. But what will make it easy for you to jump in and draw steal is what I want to share. And how did I do it? And let's take a look at the resources that are out there. David, you haven't run a draw steal game yet, have you?
I have not.
Are you
I'm
thinking
eager
about
for
running one?
what's that?
Are you thinking about running one?
I wouldn't mind running one. It would be easier for me to run one if I could run one live and in person.
Yeah.
Because the online thing, first of all, you set a unreachable bar, and second of all, that's a whole nother thing for me to do that I have not had a great deal of experience with.
Apocalypse is with us. Welcome. All right. So, yeah, I guess my main advice, and you can probably chime in with some advice about running games, David, is just do it. Your players will have a great time. You'll all be learning together. Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you got to prep the world out of your game. My first game of D&D, I was 9 years old and I had never played before, and I ran that game. And my first game of Draw Steel, I was 54 years old and I had never run Draw Steel before. And you just jump in and you play. And I like the Roll20 for the virtual tabletop if you have to do it, because it can be completely just a whiteboard. I do a lot of work on tokens and stuff, and you can find I share these tokens too. I do a lot of work setting those up, but you don't need any of that stuff. You can just whiteboard it, and it's got tools for drawing stuff on the whiteboard, and it works really well. I think you want a battle mat of some sort if you're playing in person, some sort of Chess 6 battle mat, or go to your local Office Max and get some gridded paper, because you definitely want to have that for this game, in my
Especially
opinion.
for Draw Steel, that's sort
want
of
to try it.
essential.
Yeah, wouldn't even want to try that Theater of the Mind. So the rules can be a big, impediment. It's like that's a lot of money to go spend to get into a game. If we go to the shop right now for Draw Steel, let me share the screen with that. But I've already got some input from people. As soon as I put the question out online, people were throwing in things I didn't even know existed yet. But let's look first at the Draw Steels page. There we go. All right. So you can go grab those rules for Draw Steel in a PDF format. They're $60. So yeah, that's pretty expensive. However, in the $10 starting adventure, they have a shorter version of the rules. So you can get the starter adventure, and this is an adventure that I'll play like 10 sessions if you play the whole thing. Or it's got a great one shot just to start out and try it. It's got pre-generated characters with introductions for the players to learn how to play their characters, and the rules in it for $10. So you can just jump in a game really cheap. And then the whole Draw Seal rules are open source. They allow you to copy everything but the art. And so people have already started doing that. You can go to, there's a compendium online, steelcompendium.io. Share this tab. It's a work in progress, but they have the rules in there. So you can grab the rules for free, basically, and start creating a character. Let's see here. Class. They have the different classes, Draw Steel Heroes book, rules index. I was looking over this earlier, and they have, basically everything you need to make characters is in here. So if you don't want to do a pre-gen, and you want your players to be able to go make their own characters, and they can afford the rules, you got this as a resource you can use. And Forge Steel is a character builder that is also free. And you can make characters, and it has great tools for cards, for all your abilities and such. So there's another good free resource that you can have to just start up a game with like no investment, just if you want to try it out and see what it's like. So you got Forge Steel, you got the Steel Compendium. You have, of course, Draw Steel's starter adventure for $10. If you were to get the free rules from Forge Steel or the compendium, the Steel Compendium, and you wanted to just grab an adventure for free, then they have a free adventure too called The Road to Broadhurst. And if you just do a search for The Road to Broadhurst, you can grab this free adventure. It comes with pre-gens as well. It does not come with the quick start rules, so you won't have the full like introduction of the rules, but it does come with a nice little quick reference of the rules. And this is a 4-page reference that I'd highly recommend to give to your players because it really outlines all the basics. What are characteristic scores, what are power rolls, what are edges and banes, hero tokens, all right here on 4 easy pages for your players. So another great resource to just jump in a game.
Here's a curious thing that I'm noticing from this, and this is an unusual characteristic of Draw Steel, is that rules reference does not mention negotiations or montages.
Hmm.
So I, I I know it would be just fine to start a Draw Steel game and ignore that part of the rules and just do the combat stuff.
Hmm.
What's your take on that? How do you?
Right. So basically, you can start out with it's a role playing game, so it's going to follow the general role playing game. You know, the GM describes the situation, describes what's around the characters describe what they're doing. They want to roll high on ability tests with 2d10. You don't even have to have them roll if they're just asking if they're skilled, and if they are, they succeed. And the first thing I start with usually when I'm learning a new game is the combat system and the action economy. And so the action economy is covered here in combat, um, right here, combat turn. On your turn in combat, there's a main action, a move action, and a maneuver. And you can turn your action into additional move action or maneuver. There's no limit to how many free maneuvers you can take. And then there's triggered actions, 1 per round or free with no limit. So that's like the first thing I'll zero in on a rule set. And generally when I'm doing a rule set and learning it for the first time and getting ready to run it, I check that out. And once I know the action economy, then everything else is just a list of what those actions are. So it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward to figure out from there what it is. And Sam's with us. Hi, Sam. Sam's written a lot of stuff for Draw Steel and is suggesting the VTT Owlbear Rodeo, a great suite of Draw Steel tools already in it. So that's a good advice. And of course, MCDM is doing their own bespoke VTT. I don't think that's out unless you're a Patreon and you get a copy of it. I still like Roll20. I'll probably still use Roll20. I have plenty of skill in using it, and it's what I love about it is I can pick up and run any game. It's just system neutral, so it does a good job. So okay, so you have combat. It's the first thing I try and figure out, and then as I'm going through a rule set and figuring out, get ready to run it, I'll basically be kind of setting up some quick reference things of my own while I'm gathering the stuff out of the rules. So in this case, I'll start out with what's in a turn. So if I zoom in here, make this bigger, I'll shorthand it, but you got an action, maneuver, move. You can split your move before and after your action and your maneuver. You can trade your action for a move or a maneuver. So you can trade down from the action to those two. And you got trigger once per round, free triggers. Can't do me for surprised. That comes somewhere else in the rules. But that's it. That's your turn economy. And anyone who's played most any game really can kind of get an idea what to do in combat from that. And then you can start getting into more detail about what the actions are that you can do, what the maneuvers are that you can do, what the moves are that you can do, and go from there. And then once you kind of got that outlined and the players know how to do that and you know how to run that as a DM, then you can start piling in the new things like montages and negotiations. And the starter adventure kind of does this automatically. It leans into these things one at a time. And the starter adventure has no montages, has no, I don't think it does, and has no negotiations. So
Oh,
you're just doing combat. So it gives you a really good first run of doing a system. Now, the conventure game, I'll show this instead here. So the Ride to Broadhurst does not do that. It has 2 combats, 1 montage, and 1 negotiation. And it's not written for brand new directors. It's written for directors that kind of know the game already. It doesn't explain how to play. That's what the director is for. So the idea is the director knows what they're doing when they run this game in a convention. If you're a brand new director, the Delian Tomb adventure is definitely a good way to go there. That 9.99 adventure. Let's take a look at it actually. Delian Tomb starter rules. So it comes with this set of starter rules that are 75 pages long. You know, for 9.99, you're getting a lot of rules. Plus, of course, you can get them all for free. Um, so nothing holding you back there from jumping into the game.
yeah,
And
that
as I'm
feels like all you need really to get
Yeah,
started.
9.99, and you're not making your own characters. The rules don't really have character creation in them, I don't believe. Let's look.
Feels like that might be kind of an advantage
Yeah,
because if you're running this for the first time, you can look over the characters and have a pretty good sense of what they're able to do without
mhm,
ever having to read through, I don't know, 200 pages of character building in the Draw Steel rule book.
right.
And that's a
That's a
lot
good point.
less to work with.
The first
So,
time I ran it, and I ran it, you know, when it was alpha testing. So I've learned the draw steel rules several times now because they've changed several times. But the very first time I ran it, it was all pre-gens. The very first time I ran the release copy, it was all pre-gens. And then I started introducing later, okay, you can make your own now, after the first couple runs. So don't be afraid to do that. Um, Players definitely like to make their own, but there's a lot to making a character in draw steel, and that could turn the player off before they even get to the table to play it. And I've had players on a couple of occasions now tell me when they first started playing, they did not like it. It seemed too much. There's too many rules. And then after a session or two, they're like, oh, I want to play that again. So it can definitely be too much to have the players create their own characters. So don't feel bad about using pre-gens, I would say. Let's open up actually the Delian Tomb adventure itself. I have that handy. Delian Tomb. And again, this was like for $10, you're going to be playing for 10 weeks. So unbelievable value. And it's got a nice 1 session starter so you can try it out. Just grabbing it here.
have you
It come, Go ahead.
played Draw Steel, Tom?
No, no, I haven't
No.
played it yet.
Okay. Is that are you eager to try it on that other side of the table or
Yeah, I don't, I really enjoy DMing, so I don't mind
okay.
not getting to play.
Curious.
Yeah.
Go, carry on.
Okay. Um, so this one, it launches right into a go save my child adventure. So right away, you're straight to the action. You're going to go to where the child's been taken, delve into that dungeon, get the child back out. There is a counter right at the start that's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And then several encounters inside in a dungeon configuration. And again, no montages, no negotiations. As the players are as the DM's learning to play, you can see it kind of talks them through um, into the tombs. It talks, talks to them about how do you search for things. Then it sets up a goblin encounter. Blow this up a little bit. Setting up combat, explaining combat to the players. So it just walks you through how to explain to the players what's going to happen. Um, Walks you through explaining actions in combat, and they like to use this format. That's a bullet format, and they do that for the room descriptions too, which I think is really good formatting. I like that better than a box text. Abilities in combat, so it kind of walks you through all the steps, edges and banes, keeping the combat going, and then victory. And You might have noticed what isn't mentioned here is one of the resources that you have to track as a DM, and that's
Mhm.
malice. So it just ignores that for the first combat. And the players with their pre-gens, it ignores a lot of the player powers in the first combat as it goes along. So let's take the Dwarven Fury here. So here's your pre-gen for the Dwarven Fury. And you have your characteristic scores, which are basically just your modifiers. So they don't have like the 3 to 18 range, but instead they just have what would have been a modifier for the 3 to 18 range. And your stamina, which is like your hit points and your armor class combined, and some other things with the game. And then your first encounter, you have your heroic resource you're going to track, some signature abilities, and some basically free strikes that are things that can trigger. Nothing to track. You don't even really have to track your heroic resource, except it does give you some benefits on some things you can do. Second encounter, it adds something you can spend your heroic resource on. So it adds the other abilities you get. And third encounter, it adds another ability. Fourth encounter, one more thing. And then from there, it goes on to what it does every time you level up. Second level, third level. So just a great introduction to the game for brand new players and brand new DMs. And $9.99. And if you're worried that your players don't have anything to reference, it comes with that reference sheet. So you can share this reference sheet with them and really has all they need to have on there. As a DM, I get a lot more detailed, and I have a reference sheet that I made. So if I find it, here it is. So I'll kind of start making this reference sheet when I first start playing the game, and you saw I was doing this in the virtual tabletop too. Sam said, I briefly tried to roll 20 and felt the work to prep a session felt too high. Watching you with it is like wizardry. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot, Sam. There's a lot of prep. It's definitely too much prep for a lot of people. But you can run it without prep. I run it often where I don't have any of those macros set up, and it just rolls dice just fine. And Jester, the Codex is in a pretty good place right now, at least for 1 to 3rd level PCs. Striking, that's their virtual tabletop that MCDM is doing. Sticking with the Delian Tomb that on Codex will provide the least effort for director to jump into the game. Yeah. Or just a white piece of paper and some markers, even less effort. But if you're playing, I'd say roll 20 is just as little effort as long as you're not trying to get all the bells and whistles into it. And probably Owlbear Rodeo, like Sam said. Basically, your VTT of choice will work just fine to try and jump in a game. So I'll be making those little macros as I'm going along, and I'll be filling out a quick reference sheet that I'll use. I try and get everything on 1 or 2 pages. So I have your turn here. Your turns are your action, your maneuver, your move. And then order is optional. You can split your move. You can trade your action for a maneuver or move. Triggers are once per round plus free. And then I just kind of start filling it out. What are the main actions you can do? And the main thing you're going to be doing most of the time with your main action is an ability. So each of your characters has abilities. And if you look on the character sheets, and if you look in the rules that I describe the abilities, you have signature abilities. This is like the cool thing you do over and over. And that takes a main action to do that one. And when you make an attack and draw steel, you're just rolling 2d10 plus a modifier, in this case 2d10 plus 2. Compare the results to the baseline roll of 5 damage, or if you roll 12 or higher, 8 damage, or 17 or higher, 15 damage. And you push 1, 2, or 4. So that's the main thing you'll do over and over, or Devastating Rush, and you alternate between those two. And then anytime you get a free triggered attack, someone generates an attack opportunity from leaving, you got your free strikes. That's what those come in. And then you start getting more abilities, things that are your triggered ability. And there'll be one in here that's a maneuver that comes in at some point. Here's a maneuver, special delivery, 5 ferocity. Another maneuver that comes in here. So I start filling out those quick reference sheets, and the same thing is in the rules here, just without the reference to where the pages are in the actual rule book. But you got your main actions. So any of the following in addition to those listed on their stats. Your move actions, which is just moving your speed or disengaging. Whenever you're shifting, you don't provoke a tax opportunity. and disengaging is one way to shift. Some of your abilities give you shifting powers too. And then maneuvers. And really, gosh, I mean, that's it for running a game. I just look at that stuff and I'm ready to go. I need 2d10. I might need a d3, might need a d, a few other random dice, but that's all you need. And you set up the situation, you start running the game for your players. The Dealing Tomb, great for doing that. And it's got a lot of stuff that I didn't use because I just learned the rules by reading the rules and writing them down for reference for myself. So I kind of knew them and knew how to explain them. I don't know that I would ever use the drawn out explanations that I'd give to the players about, okay, now we're going to go into combat. This is what that is. But it's there if you need it. And it's only $10. Great way to jump in the game. Any questions there, David, so far?
So for you, it seems like putting together that reference sheet is sort of the way that you go along to get your initial mastery of the rules.
Exactly.
And I've heard other people use that same tip of kind of learning a system by doing a reference sheet for yourself. I think that's a great approach. One thing that I've done on occasion is actually run a combat solo, just pitting a pre-gen against some goblins or something like that, and running my way through it to kind of practice it and get us, a sense of actually hands-on before running it for other players.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the hello world for me to get started.
The second thing too to check will be the skill resolution system that the game uses, because there's various ones, right? A lot of them are d20 plus your skill higher than a check number. This game is 2d10 plus your characteristic, which is like your ability score. That's appropriate. Plus, if you have a skill appropriate, you can add 2 more. So pretty standard, like D&D does it, just using slightly different dice. You're trying to roll a certain number or higher, depending on how hard the check is. And this uses a more convoluted way to set that. It's not like DC 15 and you're done. It's like, is it easy, medium, or hard? And then different results happen on the 11 or lower, 12 or higher, 17 or higher. And they even have, if you roll a natural 19 or 20, different results happen there. So that's the skill resolution system. Negotiation can be as simple as just talking it out, right? You don't need to make it any more complex than that. But they do have a pretty detailed, granular system for how to do it in a way that your skills come into play, what you know about the person you're negotiating with comes into play, and things that you can research them before you have the negotiations with them come into play. Various levels of what they might agree to, like they can agree to help you and throw more into helping you besides just letting you do what you're asking to do, all the way down to now that you're fighting them. And it's a really nice, simple system. And so to learn that, okay, so the first thing I do is I learn how the turn goes. That's the main thing. And then in this game, initiative was an important thing to figure out how that worked. You just roll a d10, 6 or higher. That's how you get the players choose who goes first if the players roll 6 or higher. Then actions, got the list of what the actions are, list of what the maneuvers are. Now this game, this kind of illustrates where when I first learned it, I just listed what they were. And now as I'm gaining mastery and having more time, I start adding in other things I can just quickly reference. So if a person wants to use their maneuver to escape a grab, I have written down what are the different results of their power roll. So we're rolling 2d10, they're adding their might or their agility, whichever is higher. They have a bane if they're smaller than the person that has them grabbed, and they compare to this. So unless they roll 12 or higher, they're stuck. If they get a 12 or higher, they can escape if they allow a free strike against them before they get out. If they roll 17 or higher, they escape. And this all comes in like second tier, third time I run it, fourth time I run it, fifth time I run it. Other than that, I'm looking in the book to see it. How does escape grab work, and how does grab work, and then hide, and how does knockback work, and knocking someone off you if they've climbed on top of you. And I just try and go through everything you can do with your maneuver and eventually populate all that. And then your move, same thing. How does climbing work? How does climbing onto a creature work? How does long jumping work? High jumping work? And if this is your first time ever running one of these games, a lot of this will be like brand new. But if you've run a lot of D&D before, you know all this stuff. It's all the same stuff with just slightly different numbers on it. Everything's in squares and draw steel instead of feet and draw steel. And so it's kind of slightly different in that regard.
That makes me
Attacks. Go ahead.
think of something that I've done when I've been learning a new system, and that is, for those corner cases like grappling or whatever that I haven't learned yet or remembered yet for the system, I'll just make something up during the
Yeah.
game and then jot it down so that I know to look it up and learn it later. But nobody knows the game any better than you, or you could ask them
Right.
and they could tell you. But otherwise, just improvise something and then remember that for later
Yeah.
when it's something that you need to go back to and learn as how the game actually does it.
Yeah. When you're looking at tests, for example, the first time you ever run in the game, just make them all medium tests. And then you just need to have one series of numbers. They have to get a 12 to succeed, but there might be a little bit of a consequence there. 17, they succeed with no consequence, and they get a reward if they have a crit. And then you can add easy, and you hardly should ever be having checks for easy unless there's time consequences, because you're always succeeding. Maybe there's a consequence. That won't come up very often. And then hard, you need to get to a 17. So if you remember that most time I need a 12 or higher, and if it's hard, I need a 17 or higher. You can play with that alone. If it's easy, don't even have to make the check. If it's medium, they got to get 12 to succeed. If it's hard, they got to get 17. So it's like setting the DCs of a climb check at 12 or 17. That's it. You're done. And then you can get the more granularity as you play. And you're right. No one knows that you're kind of using the simple way to play. As we're looking at this and we're talking about this, they should have like a simple draw steel rule set where you could do stuff like that. It'd go make it real easy. You don't even have to bring up hero tokens when you're playing or surges when you're playing until they actually come up in the game. And you kind of learn how those things work. You can ignore, like we saw malice in the first battle aid, just ignore the malice. So you can get into it that way and kind of tailor it down to what you need to play the game.
I'm not confident that anyone ever used a surge in all the sessions that I've played of Draw Steel.
Yeah, it is so easy to forget. If you have a character sheet in front of you or a physical game, or if you have little tokens, surge tokens, you probably remember easier. But that is one of the things about the game that's interesting. It was done right to take all the different nuanced ways of helping someone. Like in the D&D, you have bless. Trying to think of other ways you might help people. Bless is one. You can change their weapons to do different types of damage, and you may give them magic weapons. There's a lot of little nuanced things that are all modifiers that make them better at attacking people. And Drosteal said, well, let's just make every one of those a surge. So you have a power that gives one surge or two surges or three surges, and they can use those surges to do more damage whenever they want, and to up the chance that one of their things that can cause a condition on someone will affect that person. And it's pretty interesting and unique way to do it. But you're right, it's easily forgotten on a VTT. You need those little tokens in front of you to remember it. It almost seems like
And it was okay. We had fun without it.
you don't need it. Just play the game.
Yep.
Just play the game. Get the Delian Tomb. Run that first adventure. You can be up and running next weekend. With your players. Just say, hey, let's try this out. Print out the pre-gens. Print out the adventure. The map is super simple. You don't need anything complex for that map. That's in that Delian Tomb. And you'll be off and running. And if you love it, then you play more. And if you hate it, you don't play anymore. But giving it 3 combat encounters, you probably find it's pretty fun. The map's
I think
really
you're
cool.
you're implying an important lesson. If you're selling it to a group of home players that you've already got that are accustomed to D&D, I wouldn't sell it as this is your new D&D. Just say, hey, let's try this different game. We'll give it a couple sessions, see what we think of it. It's got cool tactical combat options. You got a lot of cool things that you can do as a player, and we'll test the waters.
Absolutely. So when I have the game set up in my, let's see here, find it. Alien Tomb 1, there we go. So you do need a lot of little pucks or whatever for the adversaries because they use a lot of them in Draw Steel. Minions are a lot of minions. And this encounter, when the players are playing this encounter, they walk into that room, they're like, oh, yeah, we're all dead. But then the barbarian goes in there and uses his back power, which is a burst 1 that affects enemies. And every one of these minions has only 5 hit points or 5 stamina, and he does 5 stamina no matter what. There's no chance of him doing less than 5 stamina. He kills everything around him. If he rolls high enough, he's throwing their bodies out from where he hit them. If his ferocity's high, he's pushing them 2 more squares. He's pushing them 3 or 4. And when he runs them, smashes them into someone, they do damage to the next person adjacent. So he's killing more on the second wave out. If he pushes them into the pillar, he's doing 2 extra damage. So if they got pushed, this guy got pushed 2 into that pillar from a push 4 effect, it ends up being 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because it's an object. 6 damage and kills them. So the game's really cool in how fast they can wipe the floor with the minions, but it can also go back and forth because just like the party never misses, the monsters never miss the party. And every one of these minions is doing 2 or 3 damage. And when you come in here with only 18 stamina, you can die in a hurry. This character has 18. Being a spellcaster, the main fighters have 33 stamina, so they can take a pretty good beating. But yeah, you can play this game, play this adventure. It runs really good in a one shot, or you can play it on the VTT like I did here. And the image isn't great because I have it scaled here. Go back down to 100%. There we go.
You've run a lot of Draw Steel so far, Tom. Do you feel like you've got a pretty good mastery of it, or still have more to learn?
It's going well now. Oh, definitely more to learn. I think like with any game like D&D, you have to run a monster several times before you're pretty proficient at running a monster. So having only run levels 1 through 3 and then one shot at like level 10, there's so many of the enemies I haven't touched that the first time I touch them, I'm going to forget a lot of stuff. And who cares? It's fine. You can simplify down to just retainers and it'll still work. Yeah. Yeah. So let's look back at what else you're looking at on the quick reference. All right, so I get my main actions, my maneuvers, my move actions, the various aspects of how movement works, and then attack modifiers. And in general, you're just rolling 2d10 plus 2 to attack, and you're comparing it to those 3 different result outcomes that you can get, and that's the damage you do and the effects you inflict on the enemy. But be a completionist, I'll go through the whole rulebook and find the page reference for everything that can affect an attack and put that in my quick reference. But you don't need any of that to start the game, for sure. And there's a lot of it. I mean, they cover everything. If your attacker is submerged and doesn't have a swim speed, there's a ban on power rolls. If the attacker is on high ground, this we never remembered, I don't think ever when we played. But if the attacker is fully higher than the defender and they're both standing on the ground, the attacker has an edge. If the target is surprised, the attacker has an edge. So lots of different ways to have edges and bans, and that's like advantage and disadvantage. But instead of rolling 2 dice, it gives you with an edge a +2 bonus on your roll. And if you have a double edge, you can stack one of them. Unlike advantage and disadvantage in 5th edition, which basically negate and cancel at 1. these things offset, but you can stack up to 2. So you get double edge or double bane. And the double edge, rather than give you a +4, which isn't always going to bump you up a result on, let's look at a draw steel hero, Fury. So you're rolling that back attack that I showed. You hew about you with a mighty weapon, hurling enemies backward. You roll 2d10, you have an edge, so you're getting +4 on the roll. So your minimum roll is a 6, which will do 5 damage. And then you get a double edge. If it was just a +4, you'd still only be doing 5 damage. And it kind of feels bad that it didn't do anything. But a double edge always bumps you up 1 result. So you automatically, if you rolled 2d10 +2 and got it a 10, you automatically get the tier 2 result, 8 damage instead of 5 damage. And Bane is the reverse, it automatically drops you down 1 result. And I put all those little miscellaneous rules in my quick reference too. I just kind of grab all the ad hoc rules I can find when I'm looking at a system and say, what are these? So in D&D, you have advantage and disadvantage, which is roll 2d20, take the higher, or 2d20, take the lower. And in this game, you have edge and bane, which is +2 and -2, or +1 tier, -1 tier. You have criticals, natural 19 through 20 on a main action ability roll is auto tier 3 and an extra action. You have tests, which is like rolling a d20 plus your ability score plus your skill. In this game, it's 2d10 plus your characteristic plus your skill. And like we said, it's a little more convoluted on what the DC is to succeed, but you can simplify it down to medium 12 or higher, hard 17 or higher, and then add all the nuance later.
It's
And they
always the
actually,
same numbers. It's just that the result is
the
a little
result
bit
is different.
depending on the difficulty.
Yeah. Yep. You can assist a test if you use a skill that the other person is not using, which is interesting divergence from D&D, right? Instead of 2 people trying to both lockpick a lockpick,
Hmm.
one person's lockpicking it. You can assist them by maybe distracting the town guard. So you're using some other skill that's distracting them. So you actually can grant them an edge or grant them a double edge on their lockpick check. Hero tokens and how they work, potencies, how they work, surges, how they work, falling. And then forced move is a big thing in this game, and it's a lot of fun. I think the players really enjoy it. And there's a few little nuances with forced move that I put in there. But that's really the game. Conditions, I always try to make a list of what the conditions are and where they come from. Just like D&D. You just, have different conditions that do different things. Mounted combat, underwater combat, that can usually wait. You don't need that for the first game for sure. Downtime you don't need for the first game. Magic items you don't really need much for the first game. The world information you don't need. If you're doing the Delian Tomb, you don't need a montage, don't need a negotiation. If you're doing a Road to Broadhurst, you'll need both of those. Montage is pretty well done. I like how they're done. They're like really an improved, what did they call them in 4th edition?
Skill challenge.
Skill challenge. Yeah, an improved skill challenge. And so I like how it's like there are 2 rounds. Every person gets 2 things to do. And the word montage is great because it's not like you have a series of challenges that everyone's doing, but there's little montages of what is happening during the test or this montage. And the negotiation, that's the most intricate one. Again, doesn't have to be. You can just do it through role play. But when you're ready to kind of dive into that, and this one's been maybe one of the hardest ones for me. The montage is also a hard one to keep it. I want to say immersive, like you're not coming out of the game to be doing this thing that's not really in the world.
Yeah, you want it to feel narrative, ideally.
How do you keep it in the world? Yeah.
So that instead of you're having a conversation with the Elf King, instead of working the rules to, work in the rule system and not being in the moment there in that game world.
Right. So let's look at that kind of in a little more detail. You can initiate it during combat by doing a hard presence test. Never had a party try to do that yet. But it also says if they don't want to negotiate, they don't negotiate. And then you just have 2 things you're trying to maximize their interest in doing what you're asking them to do before they run out of patience. So they have these like two dials you're tracking, and they both start at some number. In a neutral situation, their interest is a 2 and their patience is a 3. And then you try to just convince them by making an argument. Hey, help us because this is a good thing to do. Hey, help us because it'll protect you from the attacking enemy that's coming soon. Hey, help us because we'll pay you some money from the treasure we get from getting through to that place, or things like that. So you're making these arguments, and you're trying to make arguments that's going to appeal to what they want. And so they have kind of a generic system of motivations, things that might motivate them, and things that might be a pitfall where they aren't interested in, maybe if it's a negative thing. And as you're making these arguments, you're hopefully trying to raise their interest before their patience drops to 0. And every test you make is going to probably lower their interest, while hopefully raising their patience. If you do really, really good and you're appealing to a new motivation that you haven't appealed to before, and you roll 17, their interest goes up and their patience does not decrease. And this is an important one and good for immersion and good for staying narrative to the story. There is a little blurb in the rules about, hey, if you come in with good role playing and have a good reason, you should award them an auto tier 3 success. So boom, right out of the bat, first thing is their interest went up. They start out with 2 interest. What's that mean? Well, 2 interest means no, but if you pay us a fine or a fee, we'll let you through. So a no but. You got it up to 3 because you got a good answer there. They'll say, okay, well, first one is no, but here's a way you could change our mind or something like that. Or in one example, they say, no, you can't pass through our forest, but here's a trail you can use to get around our forest. And then the other one is yes, but. So you go up one step, like, yeah, you can pass, but you have to pay us some money. And you can keep making arguments about why they shouldn't make you pay money, and then it might go up to interest of 4. And hey, it'd be in your best interest to help us too. So it might go to interest of 5, and they're like, yeah, you can come through, and here's some treasure, or here's some healing potions we'll help you with. So it's a pretty ingenious little system and pretty simple. It looks convoluted. It looks like it's a lot, and it can be, but start out your first games with just some role playing, and then gradually start introducing it. I really like the idea that you can find out what their motivations and pitfalls are. You can research it. You can use your downtime to research stuff about the individual you're going to go try and convince to help you save the kingdom or something like that. So it really plays into a long-term campaign idea for having it being this complicated.
That's one of my favorite things about this system, is that you can potentially learn, during an adventure, during interaction with other NPCs,
Mm-hmm.
things that you can later use in your negotiation encounter.
Yeah.
Things that, annoy this person that you're negotiating with, things that they like to hear about, whatever it is, and you can use them as to gain a non-mechanical edge in that encounter.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me recap. Um, it'll be easy for you to jump into a game. Grab the Delian Tomb, I'd recommend, for $10 to try it out. If you're gung ho, you don't mind learning the rules and running the game and being able to explain it to your players, grab the convention adventure, The Road to Broadhurst. It'll have 2 combat encounters. It'll have a montage. It'll have a negotiation, so you can get a good feel for the game. So there's your 2 adventures you can start with, and the rules for the game. Both of those adventures come with the little primer, which is this 4-page primer for the game. Really kind of explains to a player what they need to know. This combined with their pre-generated character sheet, they'll be ready. If a player wants to get more, they can buy the rules from MCDM. Of course, those cost $60 right now. Or they can go to Forge Steel. Players that have the rules, they use Forge Steel because they really like the cards it makes for the actors. They're little cards for every one of their little abilities, and it's defined with whether their main action or maneuver or move, and therefore they can kind of plan out their turn by collecting the 3 things they're going to do for their next turn. So this is something you might want to check out either way, no matter what you're going to do. Then you have the Steel Compendium, which has all the rules because it's open source. And then if you want to be really know all the minutia of all the specific rules, grab my quick reference, which there's a link to it in the description below, which also has the page references where all these things come from in the actual book. So this is what I use when I'm playing. Of course, I've also got it copied into my Roll20 game I play. And then each of these games has the pre-gens that come with them. Dealing and Tomb has the pre-gens are graduated in the things they do. Draw Steel, Road to Broadhurst has them with everything already on the sheet. And that's it. Any last questions or suggestions, David?
I think that's a good coverage of how to get started.
Yeah, jump in the game and play. Be like I was when I was 9 years old. Had no idea what we were doing.
I think
playing the
your
Homes
first draw
edition, no
Steel.
less, of D&D. Talk about not being able to figure out what the rules were. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks, David.
Bye, folks.
Oh, before we go, you did an article, David.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up real quick. Run us through what you wrote down here. The third part in your article about initiative, and you had some really good ideas about in between turns. Is that in the article?
That's coming next week. So this week was just about how to run cyclic turn order type games.
Trying to pull it up. The internet's going really slow here.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. Got it. Making the most out of cyclic initiative. There we go.
Yeah, this is about games like Pathfinder, D&D, Shadow Dark, where the initiative order is pretty much set when you start your combat. And some of the advice for running that quickly. I think we've talked about a lot of it in past things. There's really two good techniques that I like, either one using initiative cards, one where you put a number for your initiative number and the name of the creature or your character on the cards. And then, as a DM, I like to have somebody else sort the cards, somebody else arrange the alert feat if that's something that's in the game, and then I'll drape them across the DM screen, or you can just totally delegate it to somebody else. But my idea is to make it as little of a delay between turns and working with it as possible. I also like to roll initiative in advance. I do it at the beginning of the session. Some people do it at the end of the last combat encounter and then have that in the pocket. So when you start a fight, you can just run right into it and not have to delay things for right when the most exciting moment of the game comes up.
Bonus points for anyone in the chat who can say what game system David was running here from the cards that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think this is 4th edition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Another method that some people like is just to pass out tents with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on to players. And then, that's the initiative order that you set. One of the virtues of that is you don't have to do have the DM write down all the initiative, which is the most painstaking, slow way to get a combat started, where, they bust out the pad of paper and they start jotting down names and
25, 20.
Yeah, I'm trying to do all that.
15.
Just hand them a card for the highest number, or it's much more collaborative, much quicker. And then I talked a little bit about delay and ready. I'm a fan of both of those features in these games.
An interesting bit of trivia is there's no ready or delay in Draw Steel. They don't even have ready in Draw Steel.
Do they not? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to talk to James about why did they decide that?
Because I think a lot of games don't have a ready action, but I think it's pretty much essential unless you've got a game with 1 second turns or something.
Yeah.
Because if players are so inclined, you can really abuse the lack of a ready action by going in and out of
Cover.
total cover
Yeah.
and only emerging when everyone else is frozen because it's your turn, and only
Yep.
going back into hiding at the end of your turn and take advantage of that situation. Um, I like delay too. We used to use delay quite a lot when we were in the D&D championship to set
Mhm.
up a very precise turn order for our characters. But uh, Pathfinder still has a delay action. D&D 5th edition does not. And the reason is because it complicates the rules. Uh, in the idea is there's a lot of things that end and begin on other players on your turn, on
Yeah.
characters' turns, and you don't want
You
to
can
be able
gamify
to
it. Yeah.
uh, use it to finesse making benefits last
Yeah.
longer
Now,
or
now I
detriment.
say I say Draw Steel has no delay, but the rules basically do allow delay because you pick the order you go in, right? So if you want someone who
Exactly.
has a beneficial thing going to keep it for most of that round, you just have them go last. So they just accept the gamification of you delaying your turn to the end of the round, next round.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And I wonder how much thought and finesse they went into thinking about the powers and abilities with the notion that you'd have that sort of flexibility of
Yeah.
when things end based on when your turn ends.
And vice versa. If you inflict a condition on a monster that ends at the end of their turn, that benefits all your allies, then that monster wants to go first when their turns are going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
So I don't know about the virtues of I like delay, but it certainly adds a little rules baggage to a game like D&D.
hmm
And the 5th edition designers opted not to include that. But
yeah,
if I were designing a 6th edition or even a simple game like
Shadow Dark.
Shadow Dark,
Yeah,
I would probably introduce a rule that you can delay at the beginning of a combat because there's no rules baggage at all. And it
right.
can fix some situations where, for example, everyone's backed up at a doorway and you want to get the people in the door out of the way first
Yeah,
before the people in the back start moving. Or if you want to set up a situation where the fighter can go in and run interference.
yeah,
If you can delay in that first round, you can add a lot of rules flexibility without a lot of tactical flexibility, without really introducing any extra rules baggage, because you're just toying with the initiative order that's hasn't been established in play yet anyway. So
that's a good idea. And of course, Draw Steel does it naturally because you pick the order you go in.
yeah,
So the fighter can get in there and run interference, but in D&D, the fighter might go last. So you can just at the very start of the turn say, "I'm delaying to the end" or whatever. Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty good.
Anyway, so what you're looking at there is the 4th edition rules for delay in
Got it.
case you need a sense of how much rules baggage that
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a
this
lot.
introduced.
By just getting rid of it, it's all gone.
Yep.
But you have the issue where I'm not going in there before the fighter goes, so I guess my turn's wasted.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. I'll dodge. Half the time, people don't remember to dodge. Even they're just mad that they can't do anything. It's like, okay, we'll dodge at least if you can't
Exactly.
actually have an effective action. Yeah, but no, that's I'm not super big fan of the players sorting their initiative every round, but I don't mind it the first round. It makes a lot of sense. Um, every round can get to take a long time. But of course, the suggestion there or the idea there with Draw Steel or Dagger Heart or other games where you just pick your order is have a default order and have the players tell you when they deviate from it because they'll just go along with the default order most of the time. Most of the time, no
Absolutely.
one cares who goes next and no one volunteers to go next. So if you call on someone, then they'll go.
Yeah. That's hard won wisdom, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. Daniel, thanks for joining us. It's part of the tactics and teamwork. It incentivizes players to talk about turn order more seriously to maximize that delay. Yeah, yeah. I'm not a fan of that. I know that's a big bonus with draw steal that, but I don't think you need it. I think you can run draw steal without having a lot of conversation at the table, and it runs just as good, just as fast. Um, and of course, the more players play together, of course, yeah, they get a better rhythm, and you kind of know the order you're going to go in. We shared how I do it, where you can do it kind of without having conversation, but still have that order the players self set, and then have smaller conversations only when necessary. And that's just for the players to kind of identify. And you can do this where you have a default order and you're going through the default order. And you just tell the players at the table, you might have a default order of cards like David had in front of you for draw steal, and you just tell the players, raise your hand if you wanted to go in a different order than what's here. So you'll start with the first player, and you look up, and if no one's got their hand raised, that first player's going. And you go to the second. So, oh, you see someone's raised their hand. I don't want to go yet. Put me in the back. Okay, move in the back. Then the next one, and that's a fast way to do it rather than just sitting back as a DM and not being quick. You always want to, I think, help press the pace as a DM. Otherwise, nothing worse for me than being a game table with people I don't know and having everyone question everyone else's turn. It's like, just play your characters. I just want to get on to the next round. I don't care what you do. Play your own character. We don't have to have a debate every round about what everyone's doing. Yeah. Um, yeah, jump into draw steal. Super easy. Uh, I'm having a great time running it, obviously. And I think the best thing about the game that I like right now is how good the adventures are. Someone that said this in our Discord is the adventures are really, really good. And what they're coming up with next, it feels like Flash Gordon. It feels like John Carter of Mars. You know, you're planet hopping, you're space hopping, you're saving the world, you're saving the universe. It feels so cool as opposed to kind of what D&D is doing right now, which is like, here's a map and some suggested encounters to put in the map. It's like, oh my God, you might have self-corrected too far, D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the completely scripted out adventure paths can get weird and long, and that's the one thing you gotta watch out for with Crack the Sun, of course, is like you don't want it to feel like it's just a foregone conclusion. You're just along for the ride. You want to be affecting how things happen. Um, but it feels really epic, and I can't wait to play Crack the Sun. Uh, I played Escape from Broadhurst before, or no, um, Escape from Black Bottom before, and that was during the time of doing all the alpha testing and beta testing for the game. I ran that, and it is such a cool, epic start for a adventure. And the rest of the adventure is pretty cool too. So I'm looking forward to run that again in its final form. That should be a lot of fun. Atomic Sorcery. People tend to point out when they have something to do, when they know how their characters work and their friends' characters work after about session 4 with little interference. Maybe. I find what happens is a lot of times at a table, people will question what a person does. Like, how can you do that? Not knowing that they have an ability that lets them do that, or a magic item that lets them do that. And they just wasted everyone's time. So just be quiet. The DM will check it if there's a issue. That's the main thing I think that really slows down some games with people you don't know. Is when you start questioning everything they do, and there's probably a reason they can do it. Just let the DM find that. So
I
my
have to
suggestion,
agree, though, that it's really nice when you've got some sense of what other characters can do, and you know that, for example, the healer can jump in and bring somebody's stamina up
yeah,
before they fall
just
completely.
don't play the healer for the healer. I've had I've had players quit games because other players were playing their characters for them. So don't do that. Don't
Yeah,
ever do that.
true
Yeah,
fact.
yeah. Play your own character. Enjoy watching other people play theirs. I think it's also tougher online for players to decide to. It very much is. Yeah. So that's what. So what I don't. I'll share it real quick. What I do for you, Daniel. Might like this. Okay, so the players are starting an encounter. Hey, let's go to the Delian Tomb. Delian Tomb with a gigantic amount of adversaries at one fight. So the players are coming down into this fight, and I'll have a turn order here. And let me just expand this. Now, of course, this is all handled. You're probably using the codex, so it's probably all handled differently in the codex. And I'm not sure how they do it, but maybe there's something like this they can program in. I'll have little initiative buttons that the players can use, and I'll turn those on right now because I was not playing Rusty last time I played. Initiative 0, Initiative 1, and Initiative 2. And when I click the little macro for draw steel, it kind of gives a short introductory to what the rules are for using those. So Initiative 2 indicates you're ready to go and you want to go as soon as possible. So I will pick you first from the list of people in the initiative. If there's multiple 2s there, then I'll ask the party who's really going next. 1 indicates you're ready, you'll just go in whatever order you come up in. And 0 indicates you're not ready. So if you come up, I'll move you to the bottom. So you'll go as close to last as you can. And you can change that at any time. So you're sitting there watching things play out. You got your initiative set to 0. And then, an opening comes in. Throw your initiative to 2. Next time I look at the players to take a player to go next, if the monsters were going, then I'll see that too. And you're going. No conversation needed. Just staying in character, fighting the battle you're fighting. So the players, they'll all come up and I'll set all their initiatives to 0, say. So they're all in the initiative order. Did not do all. Interesting. Hopefully, I know I did wrong. Okay. And then I'll go to the enemies and I'll go ahead and pick all the enemies that roll for initiative, which are the non-minions. Which are all those guys. And I have 1 token for each minion group. I'll add them all to their turns. And now I have everyone in the initiative order. And players 1 initiative, so I'm going to be looking at the initiative where I'm just going to take the Dwarf Fury since they're all 0s. But if while I was doing that, the human censor or the human tactician probably says I should go first, guys. Puts their initiative set to 2. Wrong guy, sorry. The human tactician would set their initiative to 2. Okay, so then I come to the initiative and I say, tactician wants to go first. Go ahead, tactician. They take their turn. Then it comes to a couple of horde characters. Then it's back to the party. Now the Fury is going to go because they're all 0s. But let's say the censor had set his to 1. Am I going to keep it the wrong guy? Censor set his initiative to 1 while I was doing other things. Then I come to the party. I say, I got a 1 here. All the rest are 0s, so 1 goes. And then a couple more warriors go, or a warrior and some minions go. And then back to the party, and maybe the Dwarf Fury, while I was doing that, decided, hey, I need to go next. I'm going to do 2. And maybe the talent said, I need to go next. And now I come to the initiative and I see 2 2s there. And I go, okay, guys, who's really going next? I give them a couple seconds to talk it out. And then maybe the Fury goes. Then a couple more warriors go. And then the talent goes. And then a couple of warriors and minions. And then it all goes. And then I would just reset the initiative. And they can reset their initiative where they want to go. If I came to them and they hadn't done any changes yet and they go first, I'd come down to the Fury talent again and say, okay, who's going first again? I do try to coach the players, hey, kind of have those discussions with each other while other turns are happening. So we don't have to wait for you to have that discussion. And one of you reset your initiative back to 1. So we don't have the discussion at all if you guys have that discussion with yourselves. So that's how I run it. So that it's players selected, super fast, and we have just minimal discussions, but still keep it player selected. So that's how I do it. That's interesting. I haven't used Roll20 in years. I've gone full analog for draw. Oh, cool. You can do the same thing with full analog, right? So you can have the same cards that David was showing. Let me go back to David's page here. So like I said, you might have a default order for those cards laid out, but you let the players know, hey, I'm going to come to you in this order. But if when I get to the player's turn again, someone wants to go in a different order, raise your hand. And then I'll call on you and get the lowdown on, you want to move up and go next. Okay. But if no one raises their hand, then whoever's next is going to go next. That's another way. It's self-determined, very rapid, very little discussion about it. And we really stay in character and the combat flows. So those are my recommendations on how I'd like to do it. I am a minimalist for out of character discussion. That's it for me. Anything else, David?
All good.
Okay. Daniel, thanks for joining. Thanks, Atomic Sorcery. Thanks. I did get this one. Okay. Yeah. We'd Give and Jester and Sam and everyone else. Corpocalypse. Talk to you guys all later.